I received a message that left me puzzled. Charlotte, my wife, had apparently made a reservation for a romantic Valentine's Day dinner. It caught me off guard since, for as long as I could remember, I was always the one arranging those things. Still, I didn't overthink it. I just felt surprised. But when the evening came, instead of a romantic dinner, all I got from Charlotte was a short text saying she had to stay late at work. I didn't question it until I happened to check WhatsApp and saw a post from her colleague Matthew. It said, "Only a loving sister knows how to spoil someone. Elegant restaurant. Beautiful soul. The cake tonight was sweet, but your lips, sweeter." Attached was a picture of Matthew and Charlotte, looking too close for siblings. She was wearing the necklace I'd gifted her that morning. The wine on their table? It was the exact bottle I'd given her for our celebration. And to top it off, I instantly recognized the place. It was the same restaurant where I once got down on one knee and proposed to her. In the past, I might have lost my temper. I might have driven straight there and made a scene. But that night, I just felt drained. When Charlotte finally walked through the door, I was calmly sitting in the kitchen, eating mango, the one fruit she was severely allergic to. For years, I never touched it, not even a hint of it in our home, out of respect. But tonight, I ordered it with intention. She looked stunned that I was still up, but handed me a fancy box without hesitation. Inside was a Patek Philippe watch. "Happy Valentine's Day, love," she said with a soft smile. A perfect wife, giving as much as she received. Or at least, that's the version she sold the world. But even the restaurant owner, who had known us since college, sent me a congratulatory message, assuming we were the happy couple dining that evening. "Got a new mango-layered cake tonight," he said. "Want to try it next time?" I asked if it had real mango. "Nope, totally safe," he replied. Still, I told him no thanks. Because by then, Charlotte had already texted saying she was stuck at work. That night, sleep didn't come. I scrolled through my phone and stared at Matthew's post again. Her smiling face, the wine, the necklace, and on the table, the dessert. Mango-filled. I knew that cake. I knew what it meant. She wouldn't have eaten that. She couldn't. Unless she wasn't the one eating it. But I was too tired to say anything. Too hollow to argue. I didn't even confront her. Instead, I ordered mango slices for delivery. I sat at the kitchen table and savored every bite. Something I hadn't done in years. When I finished, I looked up and said flatly, "I'm going to bed. Unless there's something else." Charlotte blinked, confused. Then, trying to lighten the mood, she came closer and said, "Nathan, it's Valentine's Day." I raised an eyebrow. "So?" Her smile faltered. In a teasing tone, she whispered, "Are you seriously going to sleep this early on a night like this?" Charlotte always had this cold elegance about her, the kind that drew people in but kept them at a distance. After college, the glasses she wore only heightened that aloof charm. But tonight, there was something else. A faint smell. Cigarette smoke. Matthew smoked. She leaned in to kiss me. I pulled back. "I just ate mango," I said. "Wouldn't want you to have a reaction." Then I turned around, walked into our bedroom, locked the door, and lay down without another word. As I lay in bed, my phone buzzed. It was my supervisor, her tone sharp and impatient. "So, you finally made up your mind about the new position?" she asked. "If you back out again because of Charlotte, I swear." I chuckled lightly. "Relax. I'm not flaking this time. If I do, I'll show up with my resignation in hand." She didn't laugh. "Nathan, you better not. You're starting in 3 days. Argentina's waiting." This job came with a much higher salary, but also relentless travel. 3 years ago, I turned it down without hesitation. Charlotte hated instability. She valued routine, predictability. I couldn't picture her handling the constant absence, so I stayed. I gave up a lot for her. Back when we first started dating, even holding her hand took me over half a year. In middle and high school, most of my friends couldn't wrap their heads around my interest in her. "She's cold," they said. "Boring." I'd just smile and reply, "She saved my life." Literally. It was during a terrifying earthquake that hit our school. Everyone was in a frenzy, stampeding to get out. I was ahead of the crowd, running, when I tripped over a desk. The panic around me was overwhelming. People shouting, pushing, rushing. But Charlotte pushed her way through all of that chaos just to reach me. She grabbed my arm and helped me up, then stayed ahead of me, shielding me as we escaped. Later, I asked her, "What were you thinking? You could have died." She looked puzzled by the question but eventually said, "I wasn't thinking. I thought, if I couldn't make it out, at least we'd go together." That was the Charlotte I fell for. Selfless, brave, and quietly strong. But now, looking at her, I wondered if that version of her ever truly existed. Or had she already begun drifting away back then? The next morning, I got up early to finish up some work at the office. Charlotte was in the living room, lips visibly swollen, likely from the mango allergy she always warned me about. Matthew must have kissed her, not knowing. I walked past her without a word. She grabbed my wrist. "Why are you angry?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Because I didn't spend Valentine's with you? I told you I had work. The company's about to go public, Nathan. Do you know how hard it is for a woman to climb the corporate ladder? Everyone's watching me. I have to set an example. You've always said you support my career, so why are you acting like this now?" Her voice was rising. I'd endured her distant attitude for years. The countless missed dinners. The hospital visits she never made. The calls she never returned. I had never once thrown it in her face. Until one evening, I picked her up from work. She was applying lipstick in the car when her phone rang. She answered it quickly, her voice soft and warm, completely different than how she spoke to me. That was the first time I heard her say the name Matthew. That's when it hit me. She wasn't too busy for calls. She just didn't think I was worth picking up for. I slowly pulled my arm away. "That's enough, Charlotte." Before she could respond, her phone rang again. She glanced at the screen and hesitated. Then she gave me a guilty look and answered. "Hey sis," said the voice on the other end. "It's freezing today. I don't want to get up. Come pick me up or I'll be late and won't get paid." Charlotte's face softened, almost automatically. "You? Afraid of the cold?" she teased. "The same guy who climbs snowy mountains at night? All right, Matthew. I'll be there soon. Don't forget my breakfast." My laugh came out dry and bitter. Matthew seemed to notice something was off. "By the way," he added cheerily, "tell Nathan thanks. Not only did I get to eat at his favorite spot yesterday, but I also borrowed his girl. I'll send him a thank you gift later." Charlotte froze. Her guilty glance returned, but she quickly lowered the call volume. The absurdity of it all made me chuckle again. A short, hollow sound. I shook my head and turned to leave, but Charlotte sprang up and chased after me. "Matthew had a dinner meeting with a client and forgot to book a table. I gave him our reservation. It's just business, you get that, right?" She sounded like she truly believed her own words. Later, when I fell ill and asked her to make me some porridge, she put on her coat and said, "Matthew doesn't have food at home. I'm going to cook something for him." She didn't notice me curled up on the couch, pale and shivering. She didn't even ask. It was such a contrast to the girl I once knew. Back in high school, if I skipped even one meal or looked slightly off, Charlotte would scold me in that cold, matter-of-fact tone of hers. But then, during lunch break, she'd quietly pull out a steaming container of rice cakes from her bag, saying something like, "Eat up. You'll just get worse if I don't watch you." That's Charlotte. She had vanished. At the office, I buried myself in work. My supervisor showed no sympathy and dumped a mountain of files on my desk. "You've got 3 days to clear this, or come see me, with your resignation in hand." I worked late into the night. At some point, I glanced at my phone and found a message from my lawyer. He'd sent over a draft of the divorce papers. I didn't hesitate. As snow poured down outside, I called a cab and headed to Charlotte's office. When I got to her floor, everything was dark. A power outage. I turned on my phone's flashlight. Just then, a coworker messaged me a link, cautiously adding, "Isn't this that concert you always wanted to go to?" Curious, I clicked. The link led to one of Matthew's social media posts, a concert poster, followed by dozens of videos and pictures. It was practically a public archive of his relationship with Charlotte. From high school, to college, to her current job. And in his bio, being madly in love with her isn't just your right. I tapped on a video. It showed flashing concert lights casting shadows over Matthew and Charlotte, their faces glowing. They were holding hands, kissing, in the middle of a crowd. My grip loosened, and my phone dropped to the ground with a loud crack. Rage boiled in my chest. We'd spent most of our lives together, school, college, marriage. Through every season, every birthday. I thought I knew her. But that video, that kiss, it told me I never really did. From down the hall, I heard quiet sobs. Then Charlotte's voice, low and shaky. "I'm sorry, but we can't. We really can't." A male voice replied gently, "But I like you. I don't understand. What did I do wrong?" Matthew stepped closer and wrapped his arms around her. I watched, unseen, as he stroked her tear-streaked cheek and kissed her softly. His hand moved from her waist to the back of her head. In the darkness, they embraced for what felt like forever. Suddenly, click, the power came back. Fluorescent light flooded the room. They turned and finally saw me. Matthew's eyes widened in panic. Nathan, wait, it's not what it looks like. Then he added, pathetically, I just love her too much. That's all. It's not her fault. Charlotte looked stunned, lips parted, still wet from his kiss. I didn't speak. I just walked calmly toward Matthew. And then, without warning, I punched him straight in the face. Before he could fall, I grabbed him by the collar, pulled him in, and snarled, that one's for your slimy little face. I've seen a lot of two-faced women, but I've never met a man who plays that game so well. He stammered something, but I didn't let him finish. My right hook slammed into his gut. He doubled over and collapsed to the floor. Charlotte snapped out of her trance, just as I turned to her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream. I simply took off my wedding ring and threw it at her feet. It clinked across the floor, bounced once, and came to a stop beside her heels. Her hand flew to her cheek as I handed her the divorce papers, already printed and signed on my end. Charlotte, I said coldly, we're finished. She gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks, and ran after me. Nathan, please wait. This isn't what you think. I ignored her. Outside, the snow was still falling as I hailed a cab. Half the building had gathered to watch. Charlotte tried to stop the cab door from closing, pressing herself against it, desperation all over her face. There's nothing between us, she cried. Matthew's just a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. I cut her off with a smirk. So you're tutoring him and kissing now? Her expression broke. Red, puffy eyes, lips trembling. Nathan, don't look at me like that. Please. I said nothing. Then someone shouted from behind her. Charlotte. Matthew went up to the roof. He's threatening to jump. Charlotte turned immediately, panic flashing across her face. She let go of the cab door and ran back inside. I didn't stop her. The door slammed shut. Snow clung to the window as we drove off. Only then did the pain catch up to me. The ache in my chest felt like it was going to crack me open. The cab driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. You okay, son? He asked gently. I turned my head toward the window and said nothing. When I got home, I began packing. Clothes, documents, chargers, my old college hoodie. Everything went into suitcases. I didn't even hesitate. I just moved methodically, quietly, like I'd rehearsed it 100 times in my head. It wasn't long before the phone calls started coming in. First her parents, then mine. I didn't have to guess. Charlotte must have contacted all of them. Despite trying to stop Matthew from jumping off a roof, she somehow found time to rally both families to plead her case. How efficient. My parents tried to stay neutral. They said, son, we just want you to make the decision that brings you peace. Nothing else matters. They didn't ask questions, didn't scold me, just gave me their quiet support. When I finished zipping the last suitcase, I opened the door, and there she was. Charlotte. She looked devastated, her eyes swollen from crying, her face pale and stripped of all that confident composure she usually carried. She reached for my hand with trembling fingers. Nathan, please don't leave, she whispered. Let me explain. I know it looks bad. I know I messed up, but just give me a chance. I said nothing. She broke down right there, sobbing uncontrollably. Yell at me, hit me if you want. But don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like I'm nothing to you. She collapsed at my feet, holding onto my leg like she was drowning. Her tears soaked through my jeans. We promised we'd grow old together, she cried. Our parents are expecting us for New Year's in Beijing. They miss you. You can't just walk away now. I stared at her for a long moment. What do you want from me, Charlotte? She clung tighter, her voice cracking. I just need one more chance. I'll do anything. I'll fix this. I'll make it right. Still silent, I glanced down and noticed something. A photo had fallen out of my suitcase. It was from our college graduation. I picked it up and stared at it. There we were, Charlotte and me, smiling side by side. But in the background, nearly hidden beneath the shadow of a tree, stood Matthew. And Charlotte? She wasn't looking at me. Her eyes were on him. A chill ran down my spine. It had started that early? All those moments I thought were just ours, someone else had always been watching, always lingering in the background. When I looked back at Charlotte, she had gone quiet. Her gaze was low, ashamed, like a criminal awaiting sentencing. To her surprise, I finally spoke. All right. She lifted her head, stunned. Her tear-streaked face lit up with disbelief. Really? Nathan, you're willing to try again? I gave a slight nod, but only on one condition. She blinked. Anything. Just name it. I paused, then said evenly, remember how we always talked about going to the islands? Back in high school, we made that plan, and never followed through. I want a 5-day trip. Just us. No excuses. Charlotte nodded furiously. Yes. Yes, of course. We'll go. I'll handle everything. She threw her arms around me, her voice full of hope. It's that simple. I nodded again, even though deep inside, I knew she wouldn't make it. Not really. Charlotte's fascination with Matthew made more sense than I wanted to admit. Her entire life had been mapped out for her, from her childhood to college, even our marriage. Everything was neat, scheduled, predictable. But when life is too safe for too long, some people start to crave danger. Matthew was chaos. Spontaneous. Wild. The kind of guy who'd drag her up a snowy mountain at 2 a.m. just to see the stars. Or blast heavy metal at concerts and kiss her beneath strobe lights. That adrenaline, it was addictive. Even if she didn't love him, she was hooked on the thrill. But now she clung to me like a lifeline. She organized every detail of our upcoming trip. She was overly attentive, almost afraid I'd vanish. Meanwhile, I watched quietly as Matthew continued to post about her online, pouring out his feelings like a teenage poet. Eventually, he cracked. He posted one sentence. She loves me. Not him. I couldn't help but smirk. So I posted something too. Starting a new life with my wife on the islands. The past is smoke. Today is sunlight. Predictably, Matthew messaged me. He wanted to meet. We sat across from each other at a small cafe. He was tense, his jaw clenched so tightly I could practically hear it grinding. You're really going to forgive her? He asked. After all this? I didn't respond, just smiled faintly. He slammed his cup down. You're actually leaving with her? You're moving? Why hasn't she told me anything? Calmly, I slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a copy of the visa my supervisor had fast-tracked for me. She begged me for another chance. I said. I told her, if she can walk away from everything and come with me, I'd forgive her. Matthew's face twisted with rage. She said she loved me. He spat. I've done everything for her. I looked him dead in the eyes. Valentine's Day, the reservation, the post, the kiss. That was all you, right? To push me away? You underestimated our history. He exploded, tried to grab me across the table. But he was small, easy to handle. I stood up, poured my coffee over his head, and slapped him hard enough to knock him over. Then I crouched, grabbed his hair, and hissed. You really believed she loved you, huh? His face, so twisted with bitterness and denial, it made me feel sick. I whispered, if she chooses to come with me, we start fresh. But if she stays, I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. He already knew what that meant. At the airport, Charlotte stood beside me, nervously checking her phone every few seconds. Her fingers trembled slightly, her brows tightly furrowed. Nathan, she said suddenly, her voice tight, something's happened. Matthew was in a car accident. It's serious. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. She hesitated, searching my expression for something. Can we delay the trip? Just a little? I should go check on him. I kept my eyes on her and said quietly, I know why you didn't come with me to that concert. She froze, her lips twitching as she struggled to keep a neutral face. That night, I continued. It was Matthew's birthday, wasn't it? He invited you. She nodded slowly. I didn't want to upset him. I laughed bitterly. That concert meant everything to me. I dreamed about seeing that band since I was a kid. Even told you my birthday wish at 18 was to attend it. With you. I remember, she said, voice barely audible. But instead, I said, I went alone. And you were there too, just not with me. You were in the crowd, kissing him. Charlotte's face went pale. It wasn't like that. There'll be other concerts. I cut her off. There won't be, I said flatly. It was their farewell tour. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. I sent you a message that night, I added, just to remind you to eat. You never replied. We stood there, motionless, in silence thick enough to drown in. Then I exhaled slowly and gestured to the terminal. Go on, I said. Matthew's your subordinate. If you don't check on him, it'll look bad. Charlotte looked stunned, as though she'd been handed a pardon. You're letting me go? She whispered. I smiled faintly. Of course. We'll just reschedule the trip. I watched her run out of the terminal, hair whipping in the cold wind, vanishing into the snow. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the ticket I'd printed, and ripped it into pieces. The paper fluttered like ashes into the nearest trash can. Then I printed a different ticket. Destination, Argentina. The next day, Charlotte woke up in a stranger's arms. The man kissed her cheek gently. She turned her head and froze. It wasn't me. It was Matthew. The accident had been a lie. A manipulation. At first, She'd been furious, but Matthew's tears, his trembling voice, had disarmed her. Just one more night, he had begged. Just once. Stay with me, please. In the back of her mind, she knew she should have left. I'd be furious by now. Hurt. We had grown up together. Spent more than 7 years married. Our lives were entwined in a way few could understand. She should have walked away. But when Matthew brushed her cheek, when he looked at her like she was the only person in the world, how could she reject him? Yet now, lying there in bed beside him, unease crawled up her spine. Something didn't feel right. It was like a warning bell ringing in her soul. When you're about to lose something truly precious, your body knows before your mind does. She thought of my expression when I told her to go. There was no anger, no warmth, just finality. Suddenly, she jumped out of bed and reached for her phone. Matthew sat up, startled. What's wrong? Her phone was dead. She plugged it in and stared at the screen, willing it to charge faster. When it finally powered on, a call came through. It was her mother. Her mother's voice was shrill, panicked. Charlotte, what did you do? Charlotte stood frozen as her mother explained. I had compiled everything, screenshots, messages, photos, timelines, and turned it into a PowerPoint presentation. Then I sent it out. To both our families. To friends. To colleagues. The final slide? A wedding photo of Charlotte and Matthew photoshopped together, smiling in tux and gown. Below it, my handwritten message. Let's all wish the happy couple a lifetime of childless, everlasting joy. After hanging up the phone, Charlotte's hands trembled. She frantically checked her messages. Everything was on fire. Family chats filled with shocked replies. Friends asking if it was real. Colleagues leaving group chats or responding with thinly veiled disgust. Her entire world was unraveling, and Nathan was behind it. She threw on clothes and bolted out of the apartment, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles. The snow was falling harder now, but her mind wasn't on the road. Her only thought was getting home, getting to me. Traffic lights blurred past as she ran several reds. The car skidded more than once. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. All she could think was, he always forgave me before. Maybe he still will. But when she opened the door to our house, all that met her was emptiness. The drawers were open. Closets cleared. My things gone. Charlotte stood there, stunned. The silence screamed louder than any words. She wandered through the rooms, stopping in the hallway where our suitcases had once been. The faint memory of my voice came back, me smiling and saying, "Don't worry, we're not leaving forever." It hit her all at once. I had been planning this. This wasn't a snap decision. This was premeditated. Clean. Surgical. She tried calling my office. Security threw her out before she got past the front desk. She tracked down one of my coworkers and pleaded for information. He stared at her coldly. You don't deserve to know where he is. Days blurred together. Charlotte searched everywhere. Her eyes puffy from crying, voice hoarse from begging. She eventually found out that I'd taken a new job that required constant international travel. No set return date. No point of contact. My absence wasn't an accident. It was my escape. Desperate, she looked through our old message history. She scrolled far back, watching the emojis disappear, replaced by curt replies, then silence. She checked my social media. No photos of her. No references to our life. Just one pinned quote. When did you decide to let go? The moment I realized my future would feel like suffocation every single day. At that time, I was already halfway across the world. After finishing my business obligations, I chose to extend my stay. Explore. Breathe again. Argentina in summer was stunning. The light had a golden warmth that felt foreign but healing. In Buenos Aires, I watched tango dancers on cobbled streets. There was a fire to their movement, a rhythm that matched the pulse of freedom inside me. Then came an invitation from a business partner, Mendoza. Wine country, rolling vineyards under the sun. I sat under an umbrella with a glass of Malbec in hand, surrounded by the hush of vines stretching across the hills. That's when my phone buzzed. It was Charlotte. Her voice was raspy, barely above a whisper. Nathan, where are you? I took a sip of wine and replied evenly, half a world away. What do you want? She faltered. If you've signed the divorce papers, send them. If you haven't, I'll come to you. I didn't respond. But before I could hang up, she said, I'm sorry. And then came the sobs, deep, guttural, desperate. The sound of someone breaking. Nathan, I'm sorry. Please, just tell me what to do. I'll do anything. We've been together over 20 years. How can you just throw it away? How can you be this cold? I smiled to myself, and she must have heard it, because her crying abruptly stopped. Her voice sharpened with fear. Why are you laughing? I stared out at the hills, the vines swaying in the wind. Because, Charlotte, I said quietly, you've always believed I'd never stop loving you. That if you cried hard enough, I'd cave. That my guilt would always outweigh your betrayal. I took a deep breath and added, but did it ever occur to you, maybe I don't love you anymore? The next time I returned home, it was New Year's Eve. There's something strangely bittersweet about going back to your hometown after everything's changed. The streets were just as I remembered, warm windows glowing, families gathering around hot pots, fireworks starting to bloom in the night sky. Inside our house, relatives laughed around the dinner table. My parents smiled at me, pleased I'd made it back. Then came a knock at the door. I opened it, and there she was. Charlotte. Only, she wasn't the woman I used to know. Her once polished appearance was gone. Her hair was tangled, her face hollow, clothes damp from the snow. She looked smaller somehow, like life had wrung all the certainty out of her. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, shivering. The PowerPoint I'd created had done its job. My carefully constructed takedown had gone viral in our social circles. Her career took a hit. Her social standing collapsed. People she once counted on had quietly walked away. Her expression now said it all. Exhaustion, despair, and that last shred of hope. Nathan, she finally whispered. Every year, we've spent New Year's Eve together. Every single year. Her voice cracked. I love you, she said. I can't live without you. I stood there, staring at her. For a second, a memory flickered through my mind. The younger Charlotte, cheeks flushed red, sneaking out on New Year's just to hand me a red string bracelet she'd woven by hand. Back then, it felt like the world revolved around those little moments. I used to think that seeing her again, after everything, would tear me apart. But I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just peace. The last few months, traveling across countries and meeting strangers who didn't know my past, it had reset something in me. Charlotte must have seen it in my eyes. She flinched as I spoke. Charlotte, don't do this. It's New Year's. Seeing you like this, it's pathetic. Her face went pale. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I simply closed it. When I returned to the table, my mom looked up and asked, "Who was it?" I smiled and shook my head. No one. Then I dove back into the warmth of the family dinner, fighting over the last piece of meat in the hot pot, laughing at my uncle's terrible jokes, watching my niece try to light a sparkler with a match that wouldn't strike. It was simple. It was perfect. And Charlotte wasn't part of it. Career-wise, things took off. Under the guidance of my brilliantly cutthroat supervisor, I adapted fast to the whirlwind life of business travel. Each new city became a new stamp in my passport, a new photo on my wall, a new memory untied from Charlotte. From Tokyo to Sydney, from Amsterdam to Cape Town, I sent postcards home. My mom, who'd finally learned how to use memes, started calling me her travel frog. I found myself in Japan next. It was springtime. The cherry blossoms were blooming, and I walked through the crowds eating mango bread, finally free to enjoy what once had been off-limits in my own home. Then my mom called. "Son," she said nervously, "be careful. I heard Japan has earthquakes." I laughed. "Mom, don't worry. It's not like those things happen every day." Ironically, just hours later, the news broke. A severe earthquake warning had been issued. Flights were canceled. Phone lines went down. Social media was filled with panic. Back home, my mom lit incense at midnight, praying. Across the ocean, Charlotte found out about the warning too. By then, she was still with Matthew. Though he had lost his job, his reputation, and whatever charm he once had, they had become toxic, codependent, miserable. Still, when Charlotte heard about the earthquake, something inside her snapped. She bought a plane ticket to Japan. Matthew tried to stop her. "You're insane," he shouted. "Even if you find him, he won't forgive you. Don't you get it?" Charlotte didn't answer. In their struggle, she grabbed a kettle and smashed it over his head. Blood gushed down his face. "I'm the only one who loves you," he screamed after her. "He doesn't care about you anymore." But Charlotte walked out the door and didn't look back. I eventually made it back home, despite the earthquake disrupting everything. My flight was delayed. My phone had been broken during the chaos, and I didn't even realize I'd missed a call. One final call that tried to reach me before takeoff. By the time I landed, I was exhausted. I let my family know I was safe, then quietly returned to my usual routine. That was, until one afternoon, when I noticed a familiar figure standing outside my office building. Matthew. But he was nothing like before. The arrogance, The confidence, it was all gone. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a ghost of his former self. He pressed his palms against the glass door, desperation in every word. Where is she? Give me back my Charlotte. I stared at him through the pain, completely unmoved. She's yours now, I said flatly. Isn't that what you wanted? I turned and walked away. Only later did I find out what had really happened. Charlotte had arrived in Japan, alone, determined to find me. She tracked me down to a traditional inn in a quiet mountain village where I had been staying, hoping to finally speak with me face to face. But all she got was a busy signal. My phone, broken and off. Unreachable. She assumed I was ignoring her on purpose. And that same night, the building collapsed. Her body was found hours later beneath the wreckage. Bones shattered. Her legs crushed. She had barely survived. When my mother told me over the phone, her voice was heavy with sorrow. Son, she might never walk again. There was a long pause. Will you visit her? I didn't hesitate. No, I said. Charlotte and we were finished. That chapter had closed. Maybe it had closed long before the rubble did. After I hung up, I stared out of my hotel window in another country. Another place I'd never thought I'd visit. The city below buzzed with life. A breeze came through the window carrying scents I couldn't name. There was so much left to see. So much I hadn't lived. And as for the past, it belonged to yesterday. Let it die there. To my listeners, if you've made it this far, thank you. I hope this story reminded you of something important. No matter how lost you feel, you can still start over. You can still leave. Still heal. Still live. So flip the table. Burn the bridge. Book the flight. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Until next time.